What's up? I am so trendy. I'm so hip. I need to know which one's better. I wonder, is iOS 13 better for my iPad Air 2 or 14? Keep watching to find out. Howdy folks. Tonight I'm going to be testing out the speed differences in between iOS 13 and iOS 14 on these beautiful iPad Air 2s. These are fantastic devices, reliable and still relevant in 2020. This is my dad's iPad Air 2 from 2017. This one has iOS 14 installed in it, and I wanted to compare iOS 13.5 and iOS 14 to see if there's a very significant reduction in speed for my type of usage for my iPad Air 2 in iOS 14. And my dad's obviously more adventurous than me. He's installed iOS 14 when it was launched, and I'm still a bit hesitant and skeptical to do so. But it's very likely that I'm probably going to go with iOS 14 as well, mostly for the security updates, because security is super important. On the other hand, this is my iPad Air 2. This is from 2015, so 2017, 2015, and I bought it when it was fairly new. I got it on offer in Australia, and I had like an offer to get a free custom engraving on it. So very reliable, great batteries on both of these devices, and fantastic performance, mashallah. So this one has iOS 13.5 installed. Now, as a timekeeping device, I'm using my iPhone 10, which is on iOS 14 as well, by the way. And unfortunately, it had an accident in the gym. I was working out and I left it on this one machine and got crushed. So it had a screen protector and a case on, so it still works actually. I mean, it's still fully functional. If you take a look, like, it all works fine. And this is the original screen, by the way. And I bought this iPhone 10 at the time of the launch. So I'm filming this on an iPhone 11, by the way. And yes, I will be using this as a stopwatch for tonight. Yeah! All right, so let's get down to business. Let's compare the reboot or the startup times for both these iPads. So I'm just gonna place my camera right over here, wide angle lens on. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn on both these iPads, and then I'm gonna start the timer. So even if there is a 1 second lag, that's fine. So here goes. There we go. There we go. That's the first one. Alrighty. So when we take a look at the time, the iOS 13.5 is actually almost 3 seconds faster than iOS 13.5 is 3 seconds faster almost than iOS 14. So you've got 2.94, which is 2.94 seconds longer to start up on iOS 14 than iOS 13.5, which is not super significant for me. I mean, that's okay if it takes 2 or 3 seconds longer, as long as it's not like a whole minute longer, which is pretty cool. All right, next up, we're gonna do speed tests for certain applications, and I'm only going to open the applications that I use. So I don't have very heavy usage for my iPad. I don't play games on it. I know a lot of you do, but I just use it mostly for reading books, for watching videos on YouTube, Google Earth, and making notes, taking notes, all of that, and for any kind of study or projects that I'm working on. And I use it for Safari. And my dad has a very similar usage as well. So we're not really heavy users of the iPad Air 2. We're not heavy users of the iPad. So that should be kept in consideration. So as you can see, clearly my dad has a very nice wallpaper, and I have an even nicer one. So I've got an interesting taste in wallpapers. That's my reading cat right there. And that's a mouse on top of its hat. So yes, I do like to read on my iPad a lot, a fair bit. Okay, so I've got Lyrium Light installed on both of these just to test out how much CPU usage is occurring at each given moment for both these iPads. So first things first, let's go to settings and let's check out the about in general and look at the iPad version. So this is my iPad on 13.5.1, and this is my dad's iPad on 14, as you can see right over there, 14.0.1. So cool, 13.5.1, 13.5, and 14. There you go. Now let's check out Lyrium for both of these. All right, so starting up Lyrium on both of these is pretty much the same. It takes about 1 to 2 seconds to start up, and that's not really significant, not a huge difference. So in Lyrium, I'm going to go to this device, which is right there, and go to General. So that's general information on the device, and let's go to CPU. All right, so it shows you the CPU usage right over there. Cool. So that's CPU usage for the iPad Air 2, currently with no apps open in the background on iOS 14, right there. So it's fluctuating, and that's normal, obviously. Not that I'm an expert on this, so I wouldn't really be able to tell you what it means. I'm not going to pretend to know something that I don't really know much about, nor am I too concerned about it at this stage. But I just want to see how the usage flows in both of these. Now this is my iPad Air 2 running on iOS 13.5. So it's roughly the same, as you can see. It keeps on moving in between certain percentages of usage. So I'm not too sure if this is a great indicator or not, but I just thought I'd keep it out here. So in case I'm pissing off any of you nerds or fanboys of Geekbench, yes, I know Geekbench, I'm aware of it. I apologize, and at the same time, I do not apologize for it. All right, now let's test out some of the apps for this. So let's start off with voice notes. So here we go. So it takes about 3 seconds for the app to start up on both these devices, and I'm gonna hit allow while using application. For my dad, it still hasn't been used before. Cool, let's exit, keep this on standby. Now let's open up Notes, after which I will open up FaceTime. So here we go, Notes. Okay, so that's almost the same time as well, roughly 2 seconds, not a lot. Again, going on standby. So yeah, that wasn't a lot, going on standby again. Now let's try FaceTime for both of these. Again, the same time, takes roughly a second. It's super fast. It doesn't really waste any time, which is great. Now let's go with Apple Maps. Here we go. So that took about 2.5 seconds for both of these, which is great. So help improve maps, don't allow. Yes, I don't care about giving you information, Apple. You've got enough of that already. Cool, now let's try YouTube. So this should be interesting because YouTube can be a bit more heavy on usage, so it can take a bit more time. So here goes. And it is faster on my iPad Air 2 running on iOS 13.5. And I'll tell you exactly how fast it is. So it is about, wow, this is very good. So it took almost 5 seconds for it to load up on my iPad Air 2 running on 13.5. And it took a good 8 seconds longer, well, not 8, sorry. It took about 7 seconds longer approximately on the iPad Air 2 running iOS 14. So it opened up in about 4.8 seconds. So 4.5 to 5 seconds on the iPad Air 2 with iOS 13.5, and about 12 seconds on the iPad Air 2 with iOS 14. So that's pretty cool. So that's like a good 7 seconds faster. All right. Hopefully I haven't gotten the math wrong. Not that I'm too concerned about being a joke on YouTube. All right, now let's go with photos. So here we go. Almost the same, didn't make a huge difference. That's my old screen protector, by the way. Look at how cracked up it is. So yeah, screen protectors are very, very, very important if you use an iPad. And especially if you're clumsy like me, it doesn't take much for us to destroy our screens. It doesn't take much for me to destroy my screen. I mean, I just have look, I'm not that bad. I'm not that clumsy. I mean, this was a freak accident. But in general, my usage is pretty casual. So, I toss my iPad around here and there. So I definitely need a good screen protector and some good outside shell protection as well. Otherwise, I'm totally going to wreck my iPad. I'm completely wrecking my device. All right, now let's try, what should I open up next? Let's try books, since I use Apple Books, iOS Books a fair bit. So books, whoa, it's actually surprisingly faster on the iOS 14. Almost the same though. I mean, it did load up this book that I'm reading, Lost Islamic History, which is a very cool book, by the way. So it did take a little bit longer on mine. Maybe it's because it was loading up the bookmarks. Now my dad hasn't set up any widgets, but obviously you can do that over here. So I don't have that option here, which is a new feature, a new update for iOS 14. And cool. So now that I've opened up most of the apps that I use on my iPad, let's go with Lyrium again and see what's happening there. Okay, CPU usage. For Lyrium on the iOS 14 iPad Air 2, seems to be the same. Air 2 running 13.5 seems to be the same. So the numbers may vary, and usage would obviously influence battery life. It would obviously influence how good your device performs as well, because if you've got a lot of stuff stored on your phone, you don't have a lot of free space, and you're using a lot of that RAM, it's going to slow down. So both of these iPads have a fair bit of free space, which I'm going to show you now. Now these are 16 gigabyte models, right? So it's not one of those beefed up, jacked up ones with a lot of space. So one concern obviously is if it would be worth it to update based on the amount of space that I have for storage. So for me, for a person like me, it would make sense to update to 14 because obviously I like the security updates, and I think security is super important and it makes a lot of sense for me personally. So I'm using about 9.6 gigs of the 16 gigabytes. It took like a good 3 to 4 seconds for it to load up all of these apps. And on my dad's iPad, let's see how much he's actually using. All right, storage. So he's using about 8.9 gigs, very similar out of the 16 gigs. And it loaded up right away. It didn't take 3 seconds for me to load up all of this information. So iOS 14 is faster in some regards, and it's a bit slower in some regards. So if you're running iOS 13, I would say it probably makes more sense to jump to 14 if you don't have a lot of apps stored on your device, because it's going to take about 2 gigabytes to update. So I've got it right over here. It keeps on reminding me about the update. So that's the software update right there. And it's checking for the update. I saw it before. It's about 2 gigabytes. So if you have enough space, yeah, there you go, 2.17 gigs. So if you have enough space and you don't have too many apps running, I would recommend jumping on the 14, on the latest update on iOS 14, because of the extra features which are all over the internet, and because of the extra security that it's going to have, and certain features that 14 has that 13 lacks. So yes, definitely something that I would recommend. Again, it's a personal choice. I mean, it's a trade-off. So if you're using too many apps, you don't have a lot of free space. I understand. If you don't have too much free space, you might want to reconsider it. But if you got enough free space and you're only 13, go on to 14. If you're happy with iOS 10, 11, or 12, 12 apparently, which is the fastest, well, good for you. Personally, I'm not a fan of the older operating systems. Alrighty, hope you enjoyed. Please do like, subscribe, and share. And let me know if you'd like me to compare the iPads on any other parameters. And let me know what you think. Take care. Bye. So, there you have it. Now you know whether to update or not. Like, subscribe, and share.